Hello everybody. I've been pretty obsessed with Risk of Rain 2 for the last couple months, and I want to make a guide on how to break the game, because that's been most of my fun. The first two things you need are the artifacts of Command and Sacrifice, and they're pretty easy to get on normal mode if you just play through the game a few times. You have to get a little bit lucky, but it's not too hard. I'm going to be playing as Artificer, for no particular reason. This just isn't a character I've beaten the game with yet, so why not? So there are a couple things you want to be thinking about right off the bat here. Number one is you need to find a newt altar. I always go for it in the first level. You could wait if you wanted to, but since we're on Monsoon, I want to get this done early. And the other thing you want to do is get at least like 3 or 4 items. With the artifacts I picked, enemies drop items, and we get to pick what those items are. So for reasons that'll become clear in a little bit, I'm going to try to get 1 to 3 armor plates and a tougher times, at least, to block some hits of damage. There's a little bit of randomness with this sort of run that you can see right here. I'm pretty sure the newt altar is on that big pillar on my right, but the Artificer has no way to reach that this early on. New level, new opportunity for a newt altar, and I failed again. So it took a while, but I finally got a good run going. No items yet in this footage, but I actually got pretty good luck with items, and I found the newt altar almost immediately. So that's what it looks like. It costs 1 lunar coin, and you get a guaranteed bazaar between time. This first teleporter event will actually be the height of our difficulty for this run, so just try to stay mobile, try not to die, because that'll waste a lunar coin. Yeah, no particular advice, but if you've played Risk of Rain before, you probably have some idea of how to get through this. You know, Monsoon is pretty difficult, even at the beginning, but it's manageable. one of the big points when it comes to breaking Risk of Rain 2 is that you need to get strong off the clock. And what I mean by that is, you can see in the top right corner, the timer isn't going up right now, so the game isn't getting more difficult. We're stuck at early medium difficulty. But since we have these artifacts that drop items just randomly from enemies, if we can keep this encounter going, then we can just farm forever. In the void fields, that's sort of mitigated by the fact that you take constant damage if you're outside of the cell area. But we can manage that damage pretty easily with armor plates and the healing fruit equipment that I have. And later on, it's no problem at all, as you'll see. So, the Void Fields has 9 separate little cell vents that you have to activate. And they're just mini teleporter events, basically. Once you activate them, enemies start spawning. But as you go through each one, more enemies spawn and they get stronger. So you have to make sort of a decision. It's technically less efficient to farm the early cell vents because there are fewer monsters. But, of course, the monsters are more difficult later, so if you can't manage them, then you've just wasted a lot of time. I want to rush to level 9 as soon as I can, but I'm also building up kind of a safety net with my defenses here. I got really lucky at this point and actually found a red item. And I decided to take the ceremonial dagger, kind of at random, it's just a weapon I like. And it ended up completely breaking the encounter. I was so strong at this point that basically the daggers were just killing enemies for me and I didn't even have to move or fire or look around. So 6.5 minutes into the game, we're pretty overpowered. I've got 3 red items, and a whole bunch of whites and greens. Stacking is really useful in Risk of Rain. You probably know that if you're watching this. But yeah, stacking a core set of items is often better than getting a whole bunch of different items. You can see I have a whole bunch of crowbars, ukuleles, gasoline cans. Those stack really nicely. Having a bunch of crowbars can get your damage over 1,000,000 really quickly. And the gasoline can also kind of ridiculous. It increases the range and damage of the effect every time you pick one up. So yeah, stacking is always a good idea. So I've got a few more techniques to share over the course of this video, but for now we're really just going to take the character for a spin and see how they work in the field, so to speak. That's pretty good. I don't want to give specific advice about items because really anything you want to use will be super powerful when you stack it enough, but I think it's worth keeping in mind that you always want to balance attack, defense, and mobility. If you have just defense, you won't be able to kill anything. If you have just attack, then you might be able to kill 99% of enemies in one hit, but there's going to be one guy that one-shots you and ends your run. Mobility becomes really important when the game gets super difficult, when anything can basically one-shot you. You need to be able to avoid damage even when there's like 100 enemies on the screen. So being able to move quickly, being able to jump higher, it lets you get over more terrain, and it lets you get around faster, sort of keep ahead of the enemies just a little bit. At around this point in the game, I'm gonna start looking for another Newt altar. Thankfully, the one on this level was pretty easy to find, and we can use the Bazaar Between Time again to break the game just a little bit more. The Bazaar Between Time has some pretty useful tools we can use to break the game. Namely, we can trade in 5 green items for a single red one, and since we have a limitless supply of green items, we can take advantage of that to get a limitless supply of red items. There's an interesting quirk of the infusion item that we can also exploit. The infusion boosts your max HP by 100, basically, and you get 100 more every stack. But if you have, say, 10 infusions, and then you go back down to 1 infusion, you don't lose that extra 900 health. So I can trade in every single one of the infusions, and then just get 1 more and get my extra 1000 health back. In my experience, trading up for reds actually seems to make you weaker in the short term, but it makes you a lot stronger in the long term. You have to throw away a lot of useful green items like ukuleles or leech seeds or missiles, but you get these ridiculously overpowered red items, and you can get a lot of them. So at this point, I was getting sick of killing bosses in 2 shots. I want to kill them in 1 shot. So it's time to stop the clock again and farm for a little while. All you need to do is locate this big teleporter where you can enter codes. And then you can do artifact challenges, basically forever. Also, if you want to cheese the game and get all the artifacts very easily, this is definitely the way to do it. The artifact challenges are where I initially figured out that Risk of Rain 2 could be this broken. The artifact of sacrifice is pretty tantalizing once you figure out that you can just farm enemies forever. Once you unlock the artifact of command, that goes up to another level, as you can see here. This run was actually so powerful that I kind of started getting bored. My minions, daggers, and missiles were just doing all the work for me, and I was basically running around in circles picking up items and health. This got better later on, because at this point the game hadn't really even started getting too difficult yet. I could probably do this without cheesing the game fairly easily. But later on, when we get to like level 99 and over difficulty, then it becomes a little more fun again. You get to shoot, and running around is actually meaningful. In terms of strategy, that's pretty much it. At this point, you can kind of just have fun demolishing the whole game, and for as many loops as you want. If you're very unlucky, you could still die, but it's not super likely. So with that said, I'm just gonna kinda scrub through the rest of the footage to show you interesting moments, and how powerful I got by the end of the game. But first I want to mention that I intentionally avoided drones in this run, because I was picking up lots of drones in other runs, and what kind of ends up happening is that they just do all the work and you don't even have to move anymore. And that does eventually happen in this run as well, but I kind of wanted more interactivity. I'll bring up another run I did not too long ago, where I basically pulled out all the stops, played my favorite character, and just went crazy. And you can kind of see how stupid it gets. There's a few little points of interest here. This is my final trade up to red before I finish the game. You can see in this footage that I trade away all my infusions, and my health drops quite a bit. And shortly after that I get one infusion, and my health immediately jumps back to where it was. So that's what I was talking about earlier. You can also see that I've got 7 charges built up on my equipment. Even when you trade in fuel cells, those don't go away. I got those to make sure I could beat the final boss, just in case something went wrong. In this clip you see me buying quite a few clovers, and they're probably one of the most powerful items in the game, although they're sort of unassuming. Basically what it does is if you get a bad RNG roll that's not favorable, say if you have a chance to fire a missile, if the game decides, well, you didn't get it, you didn't get to fire a missile, if you have a clover it'll re-roll it one time for a favorable outcome. If you have 2 clovers it'll do it twice, and so on and so on.